Welcome back to Thinking Outside the Pylons. It is me, Chandler, and another week, another athlete, and this week is Haven Wong. This interview was very important to me. This interview is very important to her because this interview is about years and years of psychological and mental abuse that she had to deal with from a coach that she had the entire time. This conversation I do not tread lightly. I think it's very important, and mental health is going along with that, and I think that this is something that we should not ignore. I also want you to know that you are not alone if you are dealing with these same issues that Haven was. There are many athletes that reached out to her when she came out and said what was going on with her, that said thank you, and we are here for you. I do also want to say that viewer and listener discretion is advised. There are some trigger warnings, and I do hope you can enjoy this entire interview, and I hope that this helps anyone that needs it. I'm going to toss it over to me, interviewing Haven, and again, please enjoy. Welcome everyone to Thinking Outside the Pylons. I am Chandler, and today I am joined by Haven Wong, former Team Canada handball player, and I'm so excited to speak to her. How are you doing today, Haven?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, living the best I can, trying to get as much as this out there as I possibly can as well. What have you been up to? What is life like for you right now?
Well, I'm a teacher, so right now I have summer break, so it's been a lot more relaxing than during this year with the pandemic at school. So that's good. So basically just taking a breather.
So what was the challenges like for you, just before we get into anything, what was the challenges like for you with the pandemic and teaching and everything this year?
The biggest challenge was just going from in-person schooling to online and making that transition. Like I think we had 5 first days of school this year, which is super
Ridiculous.
atypical. Yeah, and so that was really hard to come back every single time and to like motivate the kids to actually want to learn online and stuff, and even to just get them there sometimes. And then like individually, myself, I had to quarantine 3 times because I was a close contact, but luckily I
Wow,
never got COVID. So
that's good.
yeah.
So what do you teach? What grade and like what I guess subject do you teach?
Last year I taught grade 7 to 9 special education math, so
That's
junior high,
awesome.
and then yeah, this upcoming year I'll be teaching math and science in high school.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you for being a part of that community and doing all the hard work with that. First off,
Oh,
truly.
absolutely.
So today I do have you on because I do know that you were a very, very well-known person in the Canada handball scene. You were a very strong athlete. You played for roughly almost a decade in 8 years. And what we want to talk about today was some of the issues that you faced and some of the troubles that you faced playing Team Canada. So I would like to hear what you have to say and really want to understand deeper of what your time was like dealing with all these issues. So to start with, I kind of want you to start from the beginning. What was handball to you? What did you know of handball when you got into it, and how did you start playing handball?
So I started in grade 10, so that would have been high school. And I didn't really know what it was when I went into it. Like I remember when I was in grade 9, I love sports, and I played all different sports throughout high school and junior high and stuff. And I was going onto the website just to see like what the school offered. And it's Harry Ainley, and it's a big school for people that don't know, and it's one of the biggest in Edmonton. So there's a lot of stuff that they offer for the students. And I saw that handball was on the list, and I just kind of wanted to join as many sports as I could. So I was like, oh, I might as well just give it a shot. And then once I started to play basketball, some of my teammates had already been on like the Alberta team and the school team. So they just encouraged me to come out to try out. So yeah.
So you walk in, you see what handball is like. Obviously, most likely, just instantly fall in love with it because it is a very fascinating, fast-paced, exciting sport to be a part of. And so from there, you obviously excel well enough in your high school that you're looked at by Team Alberta, correct?
Yeah, like we had our coach at our school was the Alberta team coach. So actually in grade 10 there was kind of a mishap, and I looked really similar to this other girl, and I actually made the senior team, but then he confused our names, and then I ended up actually on the junior team because he accidentally took the other girl. So when I was in on the junior team, he was able to see us just because, and when I say us, it's myself and one of my teammates, Katya, who I've been playing with ever since. Um, because he was just around the school and stuff. So from there, he kind of got a glimpse. But then I actually didn't start playing Alberta until after my grade 11 year.
Okay. So you
Yeah.
take the year of just for schooling, and then grade 11, you go in, you play 1 year of team handball for your school, and then you go straight into Team Alberta. I'm guessing. I know their tryouts are a little bit different and everything like that. It's all about certain things like that. So that being said, the Team Alberta coach is where you kind of had your issues with your career, correct?
Totally. Yeah.
So pretty much this person that had their eye on you in 10th grade becomes your coach in 11th grade, and obviously your Alberta coach as well. So pretty much I would do that's what we are going to be talking about, and I'm curious of what was your first interaction with this person, and what was it like in the beginning days?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess my first interaction with him was just he ran the tryouts for everyone. So he kind of coached me in the tryouts when I was in grade 10. And I remember like because I had teammates on my basketball team and they knew him well because they already played Alberta, I was talking to them and I was like, oh, he's so nice and he seems like super awesome coach. And they were like, yeah, not really. And I was like, what do you mean? And so I mean he kind of gave off that front at first of like being super welcoming and like super awesome coach and he's there for you, he's supportive, and then it just like that just was not the case. It's just all part of the game almost.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of interesting that they had a different perspective and like I didn't even really think much of it until it happened to me.
Well, because when you look at the team handball sport, the sport of handball, it's a very small community, especially in Canada, because not many people really know about it. And when you do know about it and you see how much fun it is, you really stay as long as you can. So that does make sense of like everyone in the community kind of knows how people are and they interact pretty much every single day, right? So I get why you can see on the outside, you see this community, it looks great, amazing. Then when you get in it, everything changes always, right? So you make Team Alberta, and obviously everything's going well. You're probably excited for doing this. You sign on. I know you guys travel a lot. You see how many countries you might possibly get to go to. So what was your feelings when you actually got to be on Team Alberta and around people that played the sport that you love too?
I thought it was really cool, especially because I got to play with some of my best friends from the school. Like, I mean, on the Alberta team, because we were one of the stronger teams at my high school, a lot of my teammates made the team. So to have like those close friends on the team as well was really fun and to be able to travel with them and stuff. And like I grew up playing competitive soccer as my main sport. And in our sport, we've traveled, but like one province over. And then I was kind of just still really heavily involved in that. So actually, I had to skip the very first Alberta trip to stay for provincials in soccer. And that's kind of where when I kind of got the first glimpse of like not being like the best decision, I guess. Like I was
Okay.
kind of like reprimanded for that. But then my first trip was everybody else's second trip, which was Iceland. And that was just like so cool because you really like realize how big the sport is in the rest of the world, because in Canada it's like it's super small. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you go on the street, not everybody knows what it is and they ask you, and it's really only people that have come across it in like other countries that know what it is. So it was really cool to be able to actually see like it be such a popular
Mm-hmm.
thing elsewhere.
Being truly like a national sport rather than just a regional sport like it is in Canada. So
Yeah.
that being said, we will go into what is that first instance like where something didn't seem right, right? Something didn't feel right with this coach in which you obviously chose a different sport over this one. What happened in that moment?
Yeah, like I guess I chose soccer because that was just like where I came from, and I thought, okay, well, that's my main sport, I better stick with it kind of thing. And at that time, like I didn't realize that the signs were there. I just kind of thought like, oh, this is my fault. And it's honestly like I can't put a number and put a day on when I realized that this was happening, because it kind of just accumulated. And with each new instance, it was like another thing, another thing. And you feel so isolated in that sense that like you think that you're the problem, not the coach, and you think
Mm-hmm.
that it's only happening to you, not your teammates, not other teams, anything like that. So at that time I really had no idea, but looking back I'm like, oh yeah, like I did deal with stuff back then, and honestly it was almost on a minor level compared to how bad it got throughout the years that I stayed.
Okay, so you go to the Iceland trip. Obviously, everything's well and good. You guys play your tournament, however you finished and everything like that. You get back. Is that when you started pursuing for Team Canada, or was it sometime after that you pursued Team Canada?
It went pretty fast. I mean, like it's kind of crazy to say that I played handball for like basically 1 year and then started playing on like the junior national team. And I mean, it's because the sport's so small here and there's
Mm-hmm.
not that many players that play, and you know as well as I do probably that it's mainly composed of Alberta and Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
So we went on a couple more trips before that, and at this point I was still in kind of like the youth age, and then I moved up to the junior, which is like U21
Mm-hmm.
age after that, even though at the time I was only like 17. So I mean, it's kind of like that. I mean,
No, I
I
know,
got
I know.
other
It's
other
just, but
sports
in
too.
at the end of the day, I do want you to understand. Don't downplay yourself because that does show. If you can represent your country at any level, it doesn't mean anything, right? It's truly an incredible feat that anyone can do. So don't ever think like, oh, it's just because it's a small sport. I mean, badminton is a small sport in Canada, but people represent their country, right? So it just depends on what level you're doing at. That really does mean something. So you're on the
That's true.
junior national team. And I know you guys travel obviously a lot more now than just Team Alberta. So what was that like? What was being on team or junior national team like compared to being on Team Alberta?
It was definitely a different like level of competition. I would say my first trip with junior national team, and this is kind of a whole separate issue because the Canadian Federation is not the most organized, and it's a little bit different here than in like Europe or South America, where we have to fund everything ourselves, and we face a couple more barriers. But that specific trip, my first time, it was like we didn't know the coaches because they were from Quebec. We didn't know any of the other athletes because they were all from Quebec. So I think there was like 5 of us from Alberta, and we literally just showed up in Puerto Rico. The players from Quebec and the coaches from Quebec showed up in Puerto Rico. We met each other like 3 days before the competition,
Wow.
had a couple practices, and then we just kind of played
Wow.
the competition. Yeah.
So I
So
can imagine that probably didn't go the best.
no, I mean there was 4 teams there. It was called the IHF Trophy, and we got third.
I
So it
mean,
was okay.
yeah.
But yeah, definitely not like the most ideal circumstances for trying to train to win competitions, but it was
Yes.
definitely a unique experience, like representing your country.
And being in a different country at that too, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what's really nice is you're traveling with people that you know in a common. That's one thing about sports when you're traveling with the team is it's a lot different than just going like on a vacation because you have a different connection than everything else. So I can see why that'd be great. And then so did it get better with Team Canada, like the Canada Federation after that, or did it seem to just kind of be that way for as long as you played?
Yeah, it kind of varied, I guess. Like, I mean, I played on the junior team for a couple years until I moved up to seniors in like the end of 2017. And that was kind of the turning point there. And it's not because I moved up to the senior team. It's actually because there was a coach from Quebec, my national team coach. Her name's Natalie Brochu. And she really wanted to turn the program around. So, starting in 2018, we knew that we were trying to qualify for the 2019 Pan Am Games. So we kind of set up like a program of all the athletes that wanted to try out, to have training camps and like actual trips and,
Yeah.
and meetings together in preparation to try to qualify for that. So at that point, it kind of became a lot more serious. And, we did have like, we were playing with the same people all the time. We knew each other. We worked on team bonding. We worked on like psychological preparation, things like that. But definitely it varied with like the junior team. And I know that it's been like this with the senior team before too. And it is
Okay.
now actually. So
Okay. So now going back to the coach where the issue lies, did this person also coach on the national level or were they involved with this team or were they still just with the Team Alberta side?
no, they did coach me. We went to Brazil in, I think it was 2016. It was Pan Am Championships for juniors. So I guess that's kind of where it comes in differently because on that trip, that coach has been one of my only handball coaches I've had throughout my entire career. So having him as my coach at that time was different because I did know him and, I knew more of my teammates and there were still teammates from Quebec and stuff, but there was a little bit more preparation. I think we had like a camp or two ahead of time,
Okay.
but it was just, I guess it felt more normal because that's just what I was used to.
Okay.
So
That makes
yeah.
sense. Okay. So all this happens. I guess how long were you playing with the national team before it kind of started to turn for you where you didn't necessarily love the sport as much and it was affecting you, if you don't mind me asking?
I can't say that I don't love the sport as much. I
I
honestly
guess,
think I
yeah,
still love it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, that's fair. That is fair. Completely understand that. Okay, then when did it become an issue where it was harder for you to play? I should ask.
that this is where it's really tricky for me. And like when I was thinking ahead of this podcast, I was trying to like put a date on it, like when did I really notice this, or when did I like think that I couldn't. And honestly, like I honestly think if the pandemic wasn't a thing, that I would still be dealing with this stuff and just still like taking the trade-off,
Pushing
which
through and
is
everything like
horrible
that.
because
Yeah.
it's like nobody should ever do that. And if I'm thinking about somebody else, like if I was talking to someone in a different sport or talking to one of my teammates and they were telling me that they were dealing with this, I'd be like, what, like it's a no-brainer. Like why do you have to deal with that? You shouldn't have to. But for myself, like I'm just so in love with competition and so in love with the sport that like I just dealt with it for so many years and thought that I had to deal with it in order to get to where I got to.
And that goes back to my point earlier, is like you still played, you still represented your country, right? And that's what was so important to you, that like at the end of the day when you were putting on a jersey, it had more meaning than just putting on the like a city jersey or something like that, right? You're representing your country and you knew that you're performing for something that actually mattered. So I know that actually made an impact as well. So with all that, get like the history, kind of getting that and understanding, I do want to dive a little bit deeper into kind of what happened with you and this coach, and really what was the downfall, I should say, in what happened to you. So, what were some of the things that were kind of just red flags in your experience that might have caused you some hesitation or some like just backing up with the sport?
I mean, I guess like in hindsight, looking back on like my first tryout in grade 10, you know, like my initial thoughts that, oh my God, this coach is so amazing. And he really like looks out for his players and he's so technical. And, you know, me talking to this other girl, one of my teammates about this, like just shows how he starts his tactics of like grooming, which is like
Okay.
just crazy because people think grooming is just like involved in sexual abuse and stuff, but it's not. So, you know, from day one, it was like rainbows and butterflies. And then it just slowly, as he creates a relationship with you, he takes advantage of you more psychologically and plays mind games with you and like just ruins your confidence and, you know, makes you think that you have to do everything and commit yourself 100% like to him. It's not even to the sport, it's like to him, in order to do whatever he wants and please him. And like, it's just ridiculous. Like, yeah. And you know, that stems not only on the handball court, but also off the court, right? So I was expected to be like texting him happy birthday and like
Wow.
wishing his dogs a happy birthday. Like it was
Wow.
ridiculous. Yeah. And yeah, a lot of the stuff that actually happened that was really affected me was off the court. You know, like I can handle being yelled at on the court, but it's like when you get like when you go home from practice and then you get a message from him that's like paragraphs long about like how you're horrible and how I should have said hello to him at the beginning of practice. And then you're just like crying because you don't know what to do. And now you're at home and it's like, it's an online thing now.
So it turns into everything is good up front and to your face. He's very nice, but as soon as you walk away and no one's around, you get pretty much on like online bullying, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
So in a sense, right? So we talked a little bit about grooming, and I know that there's other things too that he's done at this point. Were you the only person dealing with these kind of issues that you know of at the time, or was this something that was widespread throughout the team that you guys actually talked about?
Oh yeah. This is definitely widespread. I mean, I'm just going to go back a bit because I know you said it's like up close to your face. It's, you don't see it, but you definitely do see it. Like
Okay.
you, yeah, I mean, you can tell he would just actually like ignore you and that he uses that as a tactic almost. And I didn't really realize about all this stuff until like I read about it later, you know, you talk to people. But like he would ignore you and then you would know, okay, something's wrong. Like I'm probably going to get a message after practice or something, or he would yell at you and stuff. And honestly, like I would take the yelling over the ignoring, which is horrible to say. But yeah, I guess I knew that this was happening to other players, but definitely specific players were targeted more than others. And sometimes that depended on skill level. Sometimes that depended on like who he knew he could control
So I was
more.
gonna ask, is there a reason why he necessarily picked you out of the litter, pretty much, or anyone else? Is it just skill based and things like that, or you just knew you could get away with it more?
I can't say for sure, but personally, I think because, like I said, like myself and a lot of my teammates started around the same time, and I've played with some of them for a long time, and I think we all have different stories, and we've all been affected in different ways. And I think he's almost like controlled us in a way that he knows individually he can like affect us. And from the start, I was always like wanting to do the absolute best, and I wanted to do everything I could to forward myself in handball. And if that meant like doing stuff off the court, like messaging him and like having personal conversations with him because I wanted to be better at handball, and I knew like he was my coach and he was like going to make me a better handball player, then I would do it. So I think that's why he targeted me in that sense. But on the other hand, like I've got teammates that I know maybe he didn't text as much, but he would do more stuff like psychologically to them at practice.
Okay. Because I know one thing that you've said before is that he kind of embeds himself into your life and everyone else's life. And it's a tough situation for you in this matter because you're trying to impress your coach and have the opportunity that you're talking to someone that's very high in your sport, in your country, and that they can have the connections to get you because he knows everyone in the sport, right? He
Yeah.
knows everyone from the first player to walk in to the referees to I know that he is a referee and that to pretty much everything, right? So it's not like he's just a coach that you can get away from at the end of the day. Um, what was this like for you to like did you have people that you actually talked to that helped or did it just seem like it was kind of a lost cause to reach out to anyone about it?
I was definitely scared to reach out to people. I mean, the only people that I knew I could safely talk to, and sometimes honestly, it wasn't a safe place because he could manipulate people so much to get them to tell him things about
Wow.
what other people have said and stuff. And you know that I don't blame my teammates or any people that have told him things for that at all. But I mean, I knew that I had, you know, my close friends and stuff that were also experiencing some of these things and maybe not on the same scale, but we all were coached by him. So in some sense, you're being affected by it. And there's a lot of people that have been around it that just haven't even lasted as long as we did. You know, like they might have just played one trip or one season or whatever. But it's crazy like how many people it's affected. And you know, like when I posted a statement about it and about my experience, I had over 200 people message me and say, yeah, this happened to me as well, or I've seen this happen to other people like by him and things like that. So that tells me I'm not alone. But in the moment, I thought it was myself and I thought it was my teammates on my team. And I didn't think it was anyone younger than me, anyone older than me. I didn't think it was the boys' team, which just goes to show like how good of a job he does at that, which is like so
Because
negative. But
I know this community and I know that there's people that when they get it at age 16 they don't leave it until they're 28 to 30, right? They've been there for so long that it's just so close and tight knit when you don't get an opportunity and when you're a new player coming in, if he can just kind of weed through you and get you out quick, you're gone, right? It will be 1 or 2 years and he got his use out of you and you're pretty much off to the next thing, right? So for people that do stay, it becomes a part where you have this connection, you have this loyalty to him, right? Like
that's exactly it. Yeah.
you feel like you have to do everything he says because he controls a lot of people's life in that
Yeah.
sport, right? And there's so much power there that you don't have the opportunity to go against it because you don't know who's going to be on your side and who's not. You can't reach out to
Yeah.
people. Sorry.
Yeah, totally. And like, I mean, the longer that you stay, the more he knows about you, like your personal life. And like for me, when I started, I wasn't like in a relationship or anything like that. I was just a kid. And, you know, a couple years in, I met my current boyfriend and, you know, we've been together ever since, but he was there for that journey. And my boyfriend, I should say he was on the guys team, handball team. So, you know, he was in this community as well. And because both of us were in there and it wasn't just us, there was lots of my friends that had relationships within handball. It's just like that's now he's almost like a part of your relationship and
Mm-hmm.
it's creepy, you know, but it's horrible that it's really hard to separate that and have like a personal life from your handball life because it's just all like amalgamated into one thing. So yeah.
So
And
without speaking for your boyfriend and things like that, did he ever experience similar things you were going through, or did it just seem like he was targeting you over him or anything like that?
he was coached by my coach earlier than me. So, you know, he was in the handball community earlier. So he knew about some of these things, but I don't think, and I could be completely wrong and maybe just have not heard the stories or seen it, but I don't think that when he coached the male teams, it was the same as when he coached the female teams. Like he has different tactics and stuff.
I was gonna say, so
So
do you think he targets more females for this over men? And this is just an assumption. I'm just truly curious of what understanding like who this person is and what his life is like.
yeah, I personally do, but at the same time, I don't know if I could like totally speak to
Mm-hmm.
that because
Of
when
course.
I played, he mainly coached the female teams. So I haven't really seen him coach a lot of the guys' teams like long term. But it to me, it does seem like these tactics are targeted towards females.
Okay. Now I will ask this. Of course, you don't have to answer. Do you have any specific moments that really stuck with you and made it harder on you? And of course, you don't have to bring them up or anything like that. Or is there just everything was in a whole just terrible the entire time?
No, it wasn't terrible the whole time. I mean, like, if it was terrible the whole time, I wouldn't have stuck around. And I think that's part of the reason why I just like told myself that this was all okay, was because there were positive moments of, like winning and competing
Mm-hmm.
and, being part of a team and stuff. But yeah, there's tons and tons and tons of specific moments. Like I get flashbacks all the time. And like, there's even, like, I guess I'll just maybe suggest if anybody wants to know specific moments, I did write that statement, and there's a lot in there, and you can
I
read my
will
team.
post a link to that, so that that is there, because that is really important to read through. Because when I even read through it and I got an understanding of what you had to go through, that's tough, right? To be someone that's age 16 to 21, figuring out your life, figuring out who you are, and trying to play a sport that you love, you're being forced into this world that you don't want a part of. You're being told to do certain things that you don't feel comfortable with, and you, like you said, it is a part of grooming, and it is a psychological effect on you that you're not able to overcome a lot of the days. I think that's really tough on any individual at that age.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
Eh,
And like the sad part was that I wrote that statement, and I was honestly so scared to write that statement. I think like I said, if it wasn't the middle of the pandemic and there was no handball at that time where I was like reflecting like crazy, I don't think I would be gone from the sport now. And honestly, I'm still not. Like I'm actually still part of the Canadian national team program. We just don't have
Awesome.
any competitions right now. Yeah. But like when I was writing that, I only used examples that I had specific evidence of, because I was so scared that people would come at me and
That's
say like, you're lying.
wow. That's what the issue is that you live through this experience that you know other people have lived through, and you're scared to even bring it up. Like you're
Yeah.
scared to actually talk about it, which shouldn't be the way it is. If someone's bullying you in school, you should be able to go to your principal, right? You should be able to talk to someone and say, I'm being bullied. But this person sets it up and has weaved themselves way into this community that you can't even do that, because people won't even believe you for stuff that they know that's happened to them even.
Yeah. And I mean, like there's a lot of times like I'll tell one story that I didn't include. Um, like there's many stories where there's more than just one of us involved. So, you have people like to corroborate your story, and
Mm-hmm.
people still don't believe it, or they're like, that's just insane. Or, we go to our federation or whoever higher up, and we try to find resources that will like take it on. And it's just so hard. But there was one time where we have a lot of camps that were like out of town because, we have players from all over Alberta. So we were going to Red Deer, and it was Thanksgiving weekend, and it was just, fresh ice. Like we had a snowfall and it kind of melted and then it froze again. So we were driving, and it was just myself and my teammate. And I think at the time I think I was like 18 or 19. Um, and we got into a car accident where our car like completely did like a 360-degree turn on the middle of the highway on a bridge. And like as this was happening, none of the other cars stopped because it was so icy. So they kind of just kept going by. Like we were super lucky that we didn't get hit again. We kind of just like slid on the ice and then crashed into like the guardrail and
Oh
then
wow.
flipped around. So we kind of were like super shaken up, and like my head smashed against the window. My teammates' head smashed against the window. I for sure, looking back, I had a concussion 100%. But like at the time, I just didn't pay attention to it, which is horrible. That's a whole separate issue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I had like horrible whiplash, but when it happened, you have so much like adrenaline and stuff that you don't feel the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And the first person, because I was so scared, the first person that I phoned to tell was my coach, because I was like, he's going to be so mad that I'm going to be late. So I phoned him and I said, yeah, we just got in a car accident. Like, I'm going to try to find a way to get there,
Wow.
but just letting you know. Yeah. And then right after that, I phoned my parents and I just told them, and they were obviously freaking out and like
They're
saying,
like,
okay,
can you come home? Like,
yeah, exactly. And I was like, no, no, it's fine. Like, I'm okay. And, I didn't feel that much pain at the time. So I really did think I was okay. But, meanwhile, my teammate is just like freaking out. Like, she's crying and she's like in shock and she doesn't know what just happened. And she was the driver, so
mm-hmm.
understandable. And, whatever, we kind of dealt with it. And one of our teammates picked us up, and we had to drop the car off at a tow truck, or we had to get a tow truck to come and drop the car off at like a car repair shop.
Mm-hmm.
and get picked up. So, I mean, we put obviously time onto the amount of time that it's going to take us to get to Red Deer because we had to deal with everything. And then when we were finally picked up and like on the way, we just let them know, okay, yeah, like I'm getting a ride from another teammate. So we're coming, but we're probably going to be late. And we get into the parking lot of the gym and I just get a phone call and he's just reaming me out, like saying like, where are you? You guys are so late, blah, blah, blah. We weren't even late. Like I'm always early to practice. I'm always like 15, 20 minutes early to make sure that I'm like ready to go at that time. And I think it was like 5 minutes before practice started. So I was like, we're not even late, and I told you that we just got in a car accident.
That's ludicrous. That's crazy. Truly,
Yeah. And
that's
then it gets worse.
okay.
We get into the gym and like at this point am starting to feel things. And my friend, her dad just said, like, you're not practicing. Like, absolutely not. My parents, I kind of told them that I was okay. And I was kind of like, oh, I don't know, like, should I practice? Should I not? And I wasn't sure when I got there. And like my coach, it was just like so scary to me that he was so upset that we were late. I was like, I have to practice. So I practiced, and not only did we have 3 practices that day that I did all of them, which is horrible. Like you should not do that. I do not advise. But then the next day we had games in Edmonton. So we had to drive back to Edmonton. We had games the next day and like I literally could not lift my head off the pillow. Like I had to use my hands to pick my head up. And I was like so scared that I just played in the games too. And then after the first game, because we had 2, he asked me, he's like, oh, how are you doing? I'm like, oh, well, thanks for asking me now. But yeah, like I literally can't lift my head up. And he's like, oh, well, you need to go to the medical clinic. So I was like, okay. And then I was like, well, no, it's fine. Like I already played and whatever. And then he's like, no, you're not playing in the next game unless you go to the medi clinic. So my friend and I went and the doctor said like, no, you have like bad whiplash. You probably should not be playing. Like take a break until it's gone.
Handball is a
And
very contact sport and you're moving and shifting around a lot. So
yeah,
it's like you're
exactly.
golfing.
Yeah, exactly. And so I went back and I was honestly just like, I knew in my head that I should not be playing, and I knew that like looking back, I had a headache and stuff. Like I probably had a concussion from smashing my head against the window. But I was like just so scared that he would be upset, especially because we were short in my position. So I think I was the only person that was there for my position that I was like, I just have to play. So that just kind of, it's hard to say that he forced me to do it, but it's just like all of the pressures that he puts on you just make you feel like you have no other choice. And that was kind of what it was like the entire time that I was playing.
And your first reaction when you see him is him being upset with you because you're late to practice, right? It's not, how are you? Like, are you okay? Is there anything I can get you? It's a response of anger and like, why aren't you here when I want you to be here?
Yeah, exactly.
So
And like, I mean, I know I shouldn't really speak for my teammate, but like his feelings towards her were like, oh, you're weak. And I felt bad because I was the one that was choosing to practice, but because I was choosing to practice and she said no, all of a sudden it's, oh, she doesn't want to practice, she doesn't want to be the best, like, and realistically we just got in a freaking car accident.
yeah, and that's at the end of the day, you were able to get into a car accident and go practice, and he, it seems like from your story that pretty much once he got his use out of you, he's like, okay, now take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Right, like
Yeah.
he's done with what you need to do. Now you can go do whatever you need to do. So that's angering as an athlete because I've played football, I've played basketball, I've hit my head before and I've said, you know what, I need to sit out. This isn't smart. And it's not even a moment where it could be a concussion. It's like I don't feel well.
Mm-hmm.
So for something like that to happen to you and you have to be forced to go do something, not forced, but you feel like you are obligated to do something is not healthy. And it could be because they don't have a trainer there. Maybe that would help, having a team trainer that could say you're not
Yeah.
doing good. um, I'm very sorry that happened to you because that's not good at all.
Yeah. I mean, and even like, you say that it would be nice to have a trainer. I mean, it's true, but at the same time, like as a teacher and as a coach now and having more knowledge on concussions and things like that, like that's the coach's role to say, no, you're not practicing. Like why do the 3 practices on a camp in Red Deer matter in the long run? Like I can guarantee I'm not a better player now because of that. So,
You're
that's
100% right, and that kind of is a good segue of what I want to ask you is that Now, looking back at everything, and I know that you're most likely still in the community, I know you're a teacher. How do you think you would have done everything differently? And how do you think you did for yourself during that time?
You mean as a like as a
As
player?
as a player and as a person, as a human being, like what would you have done differently for yourself to make that just better outcome for yourself, or do you think that was the best possible outcome that you had?
This is a really hard question because I don't like it's so hard to say if I knew like what if I did something, if it would improve or if it would be worse because like looking on my handball accomplishments, it's hard to say if I would like have accomplished those things without being there because it's such like a dictatorship and he was really the person that was running handball in Alberta and he was really like in control of everything that I don't know if at that time I would have been able to accomplish like being able to say something without just being kicked off the team or like without being not allowed to play handball anymore. So
So I want to say that that is a very strong answer in the sense of that you didn't have a choice. Like
yeah,
you can't look back and say I can do this, I can do that. You pretty much had to run your line and run on your course for to have, even have the opportunity of doing anything that you did.
yeah,
What?
exactly. I mean, like, I would, if there was one thing that I would change, I would go back and like, I did see him doing these things after I was playing for a few years. I did see him doing these things to the new players coming in, and I kind of just thought like, well, it's par for the course, or, I had to deal with it. So, or I don't want to get in trouble. So I'm not going to say anything. And I really do wish that I would have said something to protect the younger players coming in and even like my teammates and stuff, because, I don't know if I would have been reprimanded for it, probably. But even just for them to, even like behind his back, or just like for them to know that like this happened to all of us and it's not just them and they're not alone and it's normal, or it's not normal. It should not be
No,
normalized, but
yeah. It's normal
he's
in
doing it
that
to more than just
yeah.
him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I get that. And pretty much my thing that I agree with you on is that it sucks that this is most likely still happening to people. They're still being affected by this every single day. You were now you see it and everything. Do you give people advice now that you see or that you've heard? Like, do you try to talk to them or reach out to them? Is that something that you've kind of made your mission, or is it kind of like how you were before? Well, it happened to me, it's going to happen to you.
No, definitely now I try to reach out as much as I can. I think like even towards my later years playing on the Alberta team, I definitely tried to reach out to like some of the younger players or like the new players on my team at least and stuff, and let them know, it's not just you. We're here for you. If you ever need to talk, you have me, and all that stuff. But I don't know if that was enough, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, yeah, it's hard. But I mean, yeah, I don't know.
So this might be when you wrote that message and you put it out there, like the letter and everything. Did you get any backlash on it? Did anyone reach out to you? And this is just curious. Like, did you get any hate for it, or did even maybe this coach reach out to you or anything like that from that message?
Not directly to me, but I like, I've heard things about other people talking, like, through other people. I've heard things. And just I don't want to say that everybody had to be like, oh, good job, and I'm glad that you did this and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Like, I don't need that. It was really nice to be able to see that from the community and like to feel like I'm not alone and that like I did something good for the community. But it did kind of show by who actually reached out and said like, I'm proud of you for this, or I experienced this too and stuff, and who didn't. It said a lot about like some people's character and like where their heads lie. So
I noticed that too. I will say that there are some people that I even know that are part of the same thing, and I thought to myself like that's kind of weird that they didn't say this, but it goes back to the loyalty, unfortunately, that this person has and has control over everyone around them. Are you still like? So you said you're still a part of the federation and everything. What are you doing with the national team now? Are you playing? Are you coaching? What's your involvement?
yeah, I'm still trying to play. I mean, like with COVID, we've kind of had changed in our plans and everything, and we did have a change in coaches, so there's like kind of a new dynamic and everything going on, which I don't know. Like I haven't ever played under this coach before, but we kind of don't know what the next competition is going to be for us or what the next training camp is going to be or anything. So as of right now, like I'm not playing any handball because there's no handball being really offered other than there's like a recreational beach handball league going on right now, but I just opted out because I'm doing some other stuff. But when handball starts up again, I guess it'll depend on like what's available and, you know, if it's feasible with my career and stuff. But I hope to be able to continue playing. I mean, like, another thing to note is just in Alberta, females usually stop playing before the age of like 22, which is really, really young. And I mean, female athletes peak in their late 20s, like 28. So it's kind of weird, other than the fact that like people start their careers, but I mean, guys start their careers too and they stick around. So it just kind of goes to show what the environment is like and that people kind of get exhausted and burnt out and can't deal with it anymore and then they quit. But I mean, right now I'm 24 and I'd like to continue playing and like see what I can do.
You want to be a part of that change that keeps the women athletes still competing into any age that they can.
Yeah, exactly.
So now you're teaching and everything again. Does the school you teach at actually offer a handball team?
Does what? Sorry.
Does the school that you actually teach at, do they offer a handball team?
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
Are
they
you
have a high school team. Yeah,
are you
so
gonna
I'm
try to be
taking
involved?
yeah, it's actually kind of funny because the coach that I'm talking about here, that was the team that he was coaching.
Okay.
And then when they kind of found out about all this stuff, they said, "Yeah, no way that you're going to
Really?
continue coaching." And then, you know, this was just a coincidence.
Yeah,
Like
and I know. I'm not. Don't worry.
yeah. But then I just like, I was super lucky, and it was just like so miraculous that I got a job at that school, and like now I'll be coaching in that team. So
That's really good. One of my last questions: have you had any interactions with this coach since that moment? Like, have you seen them face to face or anything like that?
nope. No,
That,
and like social media, like I'm blocked,
of
and you know
course.
everything. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of funny because like years ago, a group of us tried to do something about this, and we submitted a complaint in and like tried to voice our opinions and like let people know what was going on, and it like pretty much went nowhere. It kind of got swept under the rug. So you know, we kind of had like a second wind here, and I kind of just decided during this pandemic, like it's okay if this has negative backlash and I can't play again because I'm just done. So that's, but I did still want to play, so that's why I could do it. But yeah, like we did try before and had no luck, and then so when we tried this time, you know, it's having a little bit of a better outcome, but yeah, it's still I totally lost my train of thought now.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Don't
Yeah.
worry. It's So then, what is your mission for? Like, is this something that you? Not that you want to ruin someone's life. That's not what I'm asking. But do you think that this person should be involved with this sport anymore for Canada, or do you think that it is time to start something new and kind of push this person out completely?
Yeah, I definitely don't think that he should be involved. And this is kind of part of the reason why I think that is because when we did submit that complaint in the first place, you know, we still continue to have him as a coach and we still continue to like try to let him do better. And, you know, we kind of put our cards out on the table and said, this is what's happening to us. This is what you're doing to us. And like, you need to change. And, you know, we kind of had little support, but the federation tried to get him to change as well. And I specifically remember like a few months after that complaint, which was anonymous, but he very easily found out who
Of course,
submitted
it's
it.
small. It's
Yeah. Yeah. And I had a phone call with him for like 2 hours or something. And in that phone call, you know, I was like, you know what, I'm done with all these games and stuff. And I'm just gonna tell you flat out, like I was one of those people that submitted this complaint. And this is why. And he's like, oh, well, what did I do? And you know, he tried to victim blame me and like gaslight me. But yeah, in that moment, like I literally said everything to him, like to his face, and he just denied it all. And I was like, at that moment is exactly when I knew like you're totally incapable of change. And ever since then, he hasn't changed at all. So like I think moving forward, I don't know how anyone could give him like another chance to do anything. I don't know what you could do to get him to actually change to be able to coach again and like not do these preposterous things to other people. So I
and
honestly think that it just has to be done.
so is he still heavily involved with handball completely, even after all this has come out about him and other things too, obviously?
No, it's he actually. So based on this, I mean, the federation did like a survey and stuff, and We submitted another formal complaint, which is kind of where I was talking about that second wind. And in this time around, I reached out to like pretty much everyone that reached out to me after I submitted mine and asked, does anybody want to share their story or whatever, and sign a letter. And we submitted it, and there was over 150 people involved in that complaint that said this happened to me or I witnessed it. So that kind of shows you the gravity of the situation, and that's not even everyone, and that's spanning back like almost 20 years of people that played 20
Wow.
years ago. Yeah, so from that, they decided, I don't know if it was really from that or if it was from the survey, but the federation decided that he won't be he in his executive director position anymore with the federation, and he also won't be a coach anymore, and they kind of put a limit on that. So I mean, I guess that's a start. I
I
don't know
mean,
if that's
it
really
it started
yeah.
a change though, right? It's not, and it's a combination of everything. It's every athlete coming together, knowing that there's an issue and trying to make a change on it. And that's what I think is really important, right? That's what I really want this to be, is somewhere where someone can talk about their issues and know that they're not alone. And you learn that. You learn that you put yourself out there, and that the same things that were happening to you, you weren't alone, and you didn't have to hold that like in for so long, that you could have talked to people and you would have learned so much more. So it's very empowering for you, and honestly the sport that you actually reached out to, well, you did this, you made this post, you showed your issues, and people reached out to you and said thank you. Like, you were
Mm-hmm.
the voice for a lot of people, and that's very powerful and that's very strong. And I know that in your career, that's something that you look forward to, is that you want to help shape people's minds and things like that. As a teacher, you did a great thing by pursuing this, and showing that your abuser didn't keep you under wraps and you were able to get out of it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I want you to know that you did incredible. You did amazing things. You got to travel the world for your country. You should be truly proud of that. You really did a great thing, and I really want to ask you, if you could tell anything to any athlete this that's going through possibly the same thing, what would be your advice, and what would you want to say to them?
I guess there's a couple things. I mean, one of the things is just like, just know that this is not acceptable and that you should not have to deal with this. Like, it's not normal to be able to, or to think that you have to go through that in order to get to where you want to be. And unfortunately, it's hard because it was really difficult for myself to find resources, and it was really difficult to like figure out how to take action. And I mean, like, this was literally one of my last resorts. And like, one thing that I will say is, I would not have gotten to this point if I didn't start going into counseling. And that's,
Wow.
I love counseling. I think that everyone could have counseling, and it could benefit them tremendously. But it's not really normal for this many athletes and this many of my teammates to be in counseling now, dealing with like trauma from
Wow.
playing a sport, which should be a positive experience. And I would say as well to all these other athletes, like, if you're dealing with that stuff, like, don't be afraid to seek help from somebody. And like, talk to your close family members, talk to your teammates, talk to somebody that's a trusted adult that or if you don't have a trusted adult, like, there are resources. I mean, I know here in Canada we have Kids Help Phone, things like that, where they can direct you to somebody, and you can access free counseling and things like that. um, that definitely helped me, and like helped me to really realize that this was not my fault, because I have like crazy imposter syndrome now, and like I deal with a lot of issues. But I really did think like I couldn't do anything about it, and then I came to this idea of like, what can I do from doing that? So, and I mean, like, one other thing that's really sad is, throughout this entire process, like, I did know that this was wrong. And one of the signs that I look back on is like, I never told my parents anything, because I was so scared that they were going to pull me out of the sport. Like, I thought if I told my parents, oh yeah, like, this is what he did and this is what he said to me, or like, this is what he's texting me, that they would have been like, that's not normal, and you're not playing handle anymore. So I just stopped telling them, and they didn't really know like a whole lot of, they knew some of this was happening, but they didn't know like the degree of it.
The
So
magnitude and everything like that.
yeah, so I would say, like, don't be afraid to like talk to these people about it.
Well, that's the biggest thing. Did you have anyone, not saying names or anything, that you did actually talk to during the time that did help you get through, or was it counting that really just pushed you through it all?
No, just 100% my teammates, because it's really hard for anyone on the outside and like that hasn't played handball and been in that little bubble or even just been on a team coached by him to understand like what it is that happens. Like even when I'm trying to explain like what is it that happened to me, it's so hard because it's such these like minute little like things and these little triggers and these like small stuff that like isn't on paper that he does that just all add up. So, if I'm telling like just one individual story, it's not so much that weird, but when you add them all together and you see all these like microaggressions and stuff, it's just like a whole thing. And so you really have to understand like who he is as a person, how he treats somebody on a larger scale to understand how it works. So, going to my teammates, if my teammates were not there, there's no way I would have got through this.
That's good. And it goes to everyday life, right? It's truly a bad relationship, right? It's an abusive relationship in which you get into an opportunity where you put everything on paper, like you said, and it might not make sense, but once the papers start to stack and there's more and more and more baggage and more weight on your shoulders, it's going to hurt you.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what happened, and I know it's happening to a lot of people. I'm glad that there is a change that is happening that shows that if you do want change in an issue that's happening, that it can happen as well. So that is awesome. Other than that, is there anything else that you do or would like to say about anything?
Just on that, on what you just said, like, I mean, yeah, there is change, and I'm happy that it did something. And honestly, like, I'm happy that myself coming forward with my story mostly just made people feel like they weren't alone, and made them feel like they could talk about their story. So, I mean, whether that was on posting in social media or like just to their friends or their family or to me. But it was kind of unfortunate that, sometimes the results that happen from these, although he's no longer a part of the federation, they did not publicly announce that he was gone. They didn't post on any of their social media. They posted a public statement on their website, which nobody's going to go to your website unless you post on your social media where everybody watches you. So, it's a small victory because, yeah, like, I guess the goal was to remove him and like to create a better environment. But the way that it happened was just like not gratifying at all, I guess. But I mean, it's a start. So, sometimes it's hard to go through this and like see that the result isn't really what you want, but it's these small little things that have to continue to happen before you get the big change. So, yeah.
That's fair, and unfortunately that's a society thing that we can't necessarily change because unfortunately it's looking at a federation to come out and say pretty much we put everyone in harm for this
Exactly.
amount of years, and they don't want to say that, they don't want to put that out there, but it is what it is. That is unfortunate. Like you said, you can just only take the small victories in which you had, and that's the most important thing. Is any final comments though that you would like to say, or is that pretty much sums up everything that you have on the subject for today?
Oh, I don't think I can ever sum up everything I have on the subject, but yeah, I think for today.
Of course.
Yeah.
And if anything ever changes, if you ever want to speak more, I do want this to be a safe space for you and anybody that you know. If they ever need to talk or anything like that, I am here to listen. I want the world to be here to listen, and I think this is a really important story. It's it's important on so many different levels, on a national level, on honestly a sex level, because it does seem like he does target women more than necessary men. This is not something that anyone should really deal with or fight with at all in any sport. So I do think it's a very important subject, and I really do thank you for your time. I appreciate your participation, and honestly, I appreciate everything you did for your country and how you perform for them as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess the last thing that I'll just say is like, thank you for using your platform to kind of showcase this and show, because I mean, it doesn't have to be a handball athlete that listens to it and realizes it can be in any sport. It can be in any situation. You don't even have to be an athlete to, I guess, endure psychological
Yes, of
abuse or
course.
whatever adversity you're going through. So especially as a male, I appreciate using your platform for female voices,
Of course.
because a lot of the times I find that, inequality in sport and stuff, it's not until males speak out about it that you get the enhanced support, because women all day can say that, we deal with psychological abuse, and not that men don't, and we want change, but it's not really until, males and other people come up and support them. So I thank you for that.
Yes, of course. Thank you for your time again. I really do appreciate it. That is Haven Wong. That was an incredible conversation. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Thinking Outside the Pylons. I'm your host, Chandler, and have a great night.